Shalom, and welcome to the first video episode of Premier Torah, the world's only podcast at the bizarre, but let's go with adorable today, intersection of Jewish wisdom, history, and learning. And the English Premier League, trust me, it works. It's kind of like a brisket taco. So our episode today begins with a tifo. And if you don't know, a tifo is one of those giant flags you often see at soccer matches. They aim to support the team and raise energy and morale in the fans, but they also function as a really interesting cultural commentary and a kind of storytelling. And this particular tifo was really interesting to me because I'd never seen anything like it or really even expected to. I'm going to put a picture and it's going to be up here or maybe over here or maybe down here, depending on my very limited editing skills. But what you're going to see is a tifo from a German team called FSV Mainz. And it's a tribute to one of their founders, a man named Eugen Salomon, who was deported to Auschwitz and murdered in 1942. And it got me to thinking about the Jewish history of soccer. And I wanted to learn more, to see if Eugen was just a one-off rarity. And what I found really made me appreciate once more the scale of the loss of the European Jewish community. So I want to take you back to the days before World War II, to the Jewish communities, the thriving Jewish communities of Austria and Hungary, and a developing international soccer movement. It's not just a story about soccer. It's never just a story about soccer. It's really about the power of sports, about building a new homeland, and trying to be accepted in the country of your birth. In 1929, they say no European team could beat an English team, and top of the league was West Ham United. And if you're a Ted Lasso fan, that might sound familiar to you because that is the team that Nate the Great goes to coach in season 3 of Ted Lasso. A team from Vienna, Austria arrived in London for a match and shockingly drew with West Ham 1-1. Who was this team? Well, it was a Jewish team called Hakoach, which is Hebrew for the strength. At a shared meal, the members of Hakoach said they had to be tough. Their opponents were often anti-Semites, and they received no protection from the refs. Invited back to play again, they went on to beat West Ham 5-0. So who or what was Hakoach? It was a Zionist league, and in this case, Zionism refers to the belief in the right of the Jewish homeland to settle the land of Israel. Its supporters included Kafka and Freud, and it was formed to help increase the physical strength of the players in preparation for immigration to what was then known as Palestine. It's a kind of Zionism known as muscular Zionism. The team represented Austria despite rampant anti-Semitism, and when Austrian football went pro 1 year later, Hakoach championed in the professional leagues. Its victories made them wildly popular. Even the Chancellor of Austria followed them. And it attracted Jewish kids to play in teams representing every possible stripe and variety of the Jewish political movement, from Zionists to assimilationists to anti-Zionist Yiddish movements. And speaking of Jewish movements, because there's never just one, there was another club in Hungary, next door. It wasn't entirely made up of Jews, just majority Jewish. And it was established for a different reason. It was established to help Hungarian Jews assimilate more effectively. And I have zero Hungarian, so I'm not going to try and pronounce the name of the league. We're just going to call it MTK. And it was a hugely successful club that would go on to massacre the Italian team 7-1 in 1929. Derbies, which is to say a competition in teams between cities or in the same region, were hugely heated. And many of these assimilationist teams remain powerhouses in European football today. Like, if you've ever heard of Bayern Munich, like the team that always wins the Bundesliga every year. Okay, yes, they did just lose to City, but let's not mention that. Also Austria Vienna, and apparently also Ajax in Amsterdam, and Cracovia and Slavia Prague. Now, these two teams ended up taking different paths that mirror patterns of Jewish history, adaptation, oppression, and tragedy after World War II. In the 20s, many members of Hakoach decided to remain in America after playing some matches there and seeing how much better and safer life could be for Jews in the Golden Medina, the Golden Land. They founded the New York Hakoach League and went on to win the American Cup in 1929. By the 1930s, the players that remained in Europe faced increasing anti-Semitism, which meant that its players had to travel with bodyguards to their matches. And 3 days after the Anschluss, Hitler's invasion of Austria in 1938, the Hakoach Tourism Club, the Hakoach Sports Club, the Hakoach Swimming Club, and all of the club assets and stadiums were seized by the Nazis. The league itself was shut down, and many players were deported to the camps, including Bela Gutmann, the pioneer of the 424 system, who was deported and tortured in a slave labor camp, but survived and became one of Europe's leading coaches. He later said, "Our sergeant had learned how to torture people. Was I a footballer from the national team? Was I a successful coach? Was I even a man? Who cared? You had to forget all about it." The Hakoach story is absolutely one of destruction, of the wanton and brutal destruction of an entire community of neighbors, friends, fans, coaches, and players. But it's also one of Jewish rebirth. In 2000, the Jewish community of Vienna purchased the club's old fields for €10 million with the intention of building a new community center. And by 2006, the club had about 400 members. Its football team now plays in Austria's minor leagues under the name SC Maccabi Vienna. As for MTK, during the Nazi occupation of Hungary, the club was banned from participation in the league. And when Hungary was taken over by communists after World War II, was taken over by secret police. MTK played a major role in the success of the legendary Hungarian team known as the Mighty Magyars, and the remaining Jews of Hungary apparently continue to make up a passionate fan base. I see these pictures of these brave, talented players, and I mourn a world lost. It is impossible to comprehend the scale of the destruction, the cost, the loss to everyone. And I don't have a happy ending for this video because truthfully, Eugen Solomon was deported and murdered because his teammates, his friends, his fellow citizens allowed it to happen. And the best I can do is learn from it and talk about it, and to ask my non-Jewish allies in the ongoing fight against anti-Semitism to do the same. And maybe that's the greater lesson of that tifo, the greater point, not just to more fully understand and thereby better commemorate the memories and lives of the 6 million, but to think about how much we all lose when marginalized communities are victimized. We have to ask, what do we allow to happen to each other? What do we lose when we fail to protect each other? I'm so impressed with FZ Minds and its willingness to confront and memorialize their history. And I want Eugen Solomon to be more than a tifo. I want him to be a reminder of how much Jews contributed to European society, how much we contribute everywhere we are. And I want us to be valued and safe in the here and now, protected by our neighbors, colleagues, and friends. Yom HaShoah just took place last Tuesday. It's the yearly day of commemoration of the victims of the Holocaust. And it isn't just for Jews, it's for all of us. It's for the whole world to learn and relearn the need to keep each other safe. Every episode of Premier Torah ends with a blessing ritual. So here's today's. May we get better and better at walking each other home, as the great Jewish Buddhist Ram Dass taught us. May we get better and better at protecting the marginalized, knowing we all have skin in the game of humanity and basic goodness. Be blessed and be a blessing. Thank you so much for your time and attention.